Tonight on the Black Channel. Last week, they told you they were riding with Biden, but it looks like this week, the Democrats are riding on Biden. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, well, folks, the pressure is mounting. Folks are trying to have their way. It's not making too much headway, at least not yet, although folks are apparently trying to put the pieces into place, and it will be interesting to see how that unfolds. You know that I predicted for you how that would happen. And there were some folks apparently who were getting a little bit, I guess, antsy. They weren't very sure how that was going to happen. There were some folks who were feeling some kind of way here. Let me go ahead and show you just one example. From Breaking Points. They have a YouTube channel here. Breaking Points here. A couple days ago, they have posted this video. Now, Breaking Points is, been pretty reliable, and they're the two Cigar and What's Her Face that left from the Hill, started their own thing. And they put this story talking about they got sources in the Democratic Party that were telling them that Biden was going to be out this weekend. He was going to drop out of the race this weekend. That's what they said. And then a bunch of other outlets picked up on that, and they were showing some clips from some other outlets, but Biden's going to drop out this weekend. You'll notice that I didn't say that. I saw it when they posted it, but I didn't go and repost it. I didn't repost their video. I saw it on YouTube first. I didn't go off and repost it. I didn't do that. Because nowadays, what tends to happen is people say things. They say things to be seen as quickly as they possibly can. They say things to be seen as quickly as they possibly can. And being accurate is a distant second. Well, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything at all. And as usual, those kind of things work out. Because this was the video, by the way, that was posted right after that from MSNBC.
I have some breaking news, Brian, that I want to get to regarding President Biden. And this is a statement that's just out, coming over the Reuters wires for us. Biden says he looks forward to getting back on the campaign trail next week. And he says Donald Trump's dark vision is not who we are as a...
What? Interesting. So they said over here, and Biden's going to be out this weekend, and Biden comes back to say, by the way, we'll be on the campaign trail next week.
I have some breaking news, Brian, that I want to get to regarding President Biden. And this is a statement that's just out, coming over the Reuters wires for us. Biden says he looks forward to getting back on the campaign trail next week. And he says Donald Trump's dark vision is not who we are as Americans. It's not much of a statement, but it is notable because, again, there are increasing calls for him to drop out of the race, including a number of lawmakers today, 5 congressmen, lawmakers, and 1 senator at least. I have some breaking news, Brian, that I want to...
Yeah, buddy. And by the way, there were a number of outlets that were repeating what Breaking Points has said. There were a number of outlets that did that. Well, why would they be doing that? Well, probably because this right here. Probably because of this. Pressure is mounting. 30 Democrats. 30. So far, it's been 30 who are urging Biden to withdraw. 30. Found that to be rather interesting, to be totally honest. Found that to be interesting. Now, please be aware, a lot of these folks here have not come out and openly said anything. They're not going to do that. They're too worried about doing that. But it's not a good sign, necessarily. Although you can't force the issue either. Now, I want to show you something to help put this in context. Because The Guardian has done a good article about this, and I want you all to brace yourselves for maximum cringe. Pressure mounts on Biden as tally of Democrats urging withdrawal passes 30. Talks about the beleaguered Joe Biden entered politically the most decisive weekend of his 50-year political career on Friday as the growing list of Democratic members of Congress calling on him to step aside surpassed 30, with the latest being Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. So now they're naming names. Biden is recovering from COVID right now in self-isolation in his home in Delaware and reportedly feeling, quote, angry and betrayed by allies, and speculation mounted that he might be preparing to announce his withdrawal from the race. Advisors were reported to be discussing the details, timing, and setting of a possible withdrawal announcement, and a mood of resignation before Biden's departure was said to be rampant among his campaign staff. To which I'm saying, by the way, you better be careful when you start reprinting and chasing rumors. So, just thought we'd take a moment to do that. According to Biden and them, yeah, they heard what you said, and he said, I'll be on the campaign trail, see you next week. With 6 in 10 Democratic voters telling an AP Nork Center for Public Affairs research poll released on Friday that Kamala Harris would make a good president, allies of the vice president were making discreet preparations for her to assume the top of the presidential ticket, courting donors and crafting a new message to be used in the event she becomes the candidate. Why do I think you shouldn't hold your breath? Now, check this out. A rare glimmer of light for Biden came in a letter on Thursday signed by more than 1,400 black female supporters who urged that he should remain the candidate and that any attempt to change the ticket would, quote, circumvent the will of millions of voters who participated in a democratic process in the primaries. Auntie, chill! Another public statement of support on Thursday came from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the New York congresswoman who, during an Instagram live stream on Thursday, urged Democrats to reconsider their efforts to push Biden out. Bernie Sanders also urged support. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus's campaign arm also announced on Friday that it was endorsing Biden, which is no surprise given the group's opposition to Trump, but noteworthy at the moment when the president is fighting for his political life. Quote, another Trump presidency would be disastrous to the Latino community across the country, the group's chairwoman Linda Sanchez said. But with more than 30 Democrats in Congress, including the leading California Representative Adam Schiff, having now called on Biden to step down, the president was said to be angry at senior figures in the party for encouraging the discontent. This is Jamie Harrison. This was him. Same time that these stories are being posted, this is him. I'm going to say this as clearly as I can. If you are a Democratic Party elected official, pundit, etc., focus your time, especially TV time, talking about how disastrous Trump, Vance, your opponent, if you have one. What? Damn! And Trump's Project 25 will be to the nation. Full stop. If you are not, then you definitely aren't helping. To which somebody responded to him, Jamie, I think Biden needs to step aside. I don't think he's capable of convincing the 10% of undecided voters that decide every election that he's fit for office. I don't want Trump to win. To which Jamie responded, so those 10% are going to vote for a twice impeached, insurrection leading 34 counts convicted felon who raped a woman? Okay, I see. Mr. Garcia is like, hell yeah, this is how every Democrat should be talking. President Biden has the record to run on. No longer listening to the media. Can we stop gaslighting others? Thank you, Jamie. Here's the problem. When you're the chairman of the DNC, why is it he couldn't make these calls privately? He had to go to Twitter. Do you know how weak the leadership has to be if you are going to Twitter to make your case? How in the world is it you're the chairman and you can't just make a few phone calls? How is that? How is that? Think about that for a few moments. How much power do you not have if that's what you have to do? How much power are you lacking when the only way you can get them in line is to go to Twitter? He has to go to Twitter and say this publicly in front of people. Hey, let me say this clearly. So this is how he has to reach the party? I want you to understand what that means. Doesn't have a leg to stand on there. So if you want to know what's happening over here, that gives you an idea. Now they're getting the speculation, but it says here the chief among the people that want him to step down is Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, who has tried to persuade Biden of his declining poll numbers, as well as Barack Obama and Bill and Hillary Clinton, who Biden reportedly feels have undermined him through their conspicuous silence. So you can't really count them among the 30, to be totally honest. But what they're saying here is that, they've been silent. Well, they've already endorsed him once. And it's like, okay, this will they got out there in stomp form is kind of falling back on that. Okay. Late on Friday evening, Senator Brown released a statement, quote, "At this critical time, our full attention must return to these important issues. I think the president should end his campaign." So let me get this straight. Their priority is they need to get rid of Biden now. They don't want to wait on it. We need to get rid of him now. Do you know what the real problem here is? The real problem is not if they succeed in getting rid of Biden. That wouldn't be the real problem. The real problem is if they fail. Can you imagine what the Democratic Party is going to be if Biden survives this, much less if he gets reelected? Can you imagine what he's going to do to California, the Democrats in California, if he gets reelected? See, the reason why coming out publicly is not a bright idea is because there's an old saying, when you strike at the king, you must kill him. You can't strike at Biden and fail. If you come out like this against him publicly, you're going to have to come out publicly and it's going to have to work. You're going to have to win. Because if you fail, if he succeeds, and if he's able to win without your support, that's a bad spot to be in. That's a horrific spot to be in. And you notice how many California politicians they were naming here. That's a bad spot to be in, man. That's a bad spot to be in. So you better hope that you get him. If you all are, whoever put up Senator Brown to do that, Nancy Pelosi and them is okay. You better get him. This better work. This better work. Kamala's not going to say anything. She ain't got no pull except on Roland Martin's channel. That's the only place where Kamala Harris is running things is Roland Martin's channel. So I guess he's deciding. By the way, I ain't spoken against you, Kamala. It goes on to say here that after weeks of defiantly stating that he will remain the Democratic nominee, despite concerns about his age and mental acuity in the wake of last month's disastrous debate against Donald Trump, some media outlets were reporting that Biden was reconsidering his position. Quote, reality is setting in, a source close to Biden told the New York Times, adding that it would not be surprising if Biden announced his withdrawal soon to allow Harris to take the nomination. Quote, I don't see how Biden can outmaneuver the sustained attacks, Politico quoted a Democratic figure close to the White House as saying, it feels like the ending is near.
Get to regarding President Biden, and this is a statement that's just out, coming over the Reuters wires for us. Biden says he looks forward to getting back on the campaign trail next week.
Okay. This didn't age very well. Biden's resolve has reportedly been shaken by a combination of the intensive machinations of Pelosi, fresh poll data from swing states showing his path to an electoral college victory narrowing, and a boycott by key donors, the latest of whom reportedly was the Silicon Valley billionaire Michael Moritz. Folks, please remember something. As I said here before, yeah, you got big money donors, and don't get me wrong, if enough of them pull out, if the money dries up, that, in my opinion, would be the only, and I mentioned this before, by the way, when I talked about George Clooney. If the money men walk, they would essentially be kneecapping him. So if they kneecap him, yeah, not good. You can have all the campaign desires you want to. If you don't have any money, you can't make it happen. So if the money men bolt, that's different. Other than that, no. Biden has repeatedly insisted that he has polling evidence showing he could win, relying on data from his aide, Michael Donnellan. But when he made the argument to Pelosi in a recent phone call, she told him to, quote, put Donnellan on the phone so she could counter it with her own polling and implying that the president was not being kept informed, the New York Times reported. So the New York Times, and I saw that story there, what they're saying is that Nancy Pelosi, when Biden told her that, she basically was telling him that his campaign aide was not telling him the truth, or that his campaign aide was not giving him accurate information. Public pressure intensified further on Thursday when the Senate Democrats John Tester of Montana and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico publicly urged Biden to step aside. Many more than the 30-plus congressional Democrats who have publicly called for his withdrawal have done so in private. 4 House members, Jared Huffman of California. Folks, California, you ain't doing yourself no favors right now. Kamala Harris from California, Nancy Pelosi, California, Sherrod Brown, Jared Huffman, y'all are not doing yourselves any favors right now in California. You're putting the spotlight on yourselves for all the wrong reasons. Zoe Lofgren of California. I'm like, California, you're showing up for all the wrong reasons. Illinois, Chuy Garcia of Illinois, Sean Casten of Illinois. Okay. I'll just read the names here. 4 House members, Jared Huffman of California, Mark Vesey of Texas, Chuy Garcia of Illinois, and Mark Pocan of Wisconsin, issued a plea jointly Friday. 3 further separate calls were made by Zoe Lofgren of California, Sean Casten of Illinois, and Greg Landsman of Ohio, whose seat is one of the Republicans' top targets in the November elections. So these are folks right here. California is doing yourself no favors. And by the way, you're coming out openly. So let me get this straight. The Republican Party is over there uniting. By the way, y'all do know they had Nikki Haley was at the Republican National Convention.
Auntie, chill!
And you know what Trump has said about her. Nikki Haley was there. That's like Bret Hart when he went back to the WWE. Well, I guess hell froze over. Nikki Haley was at the convention. Tucker Carlson was there. Ron DeSantis opened the thing. That's what's happening on the Republican side. Meanwhile, over on the Democrat side, it's full-blown civil war. It's Lord of the Flies over there. Not looking great. Not looking great. People who have known this man for 30, 40 years are stabbing this man in the front and the back, a senior campaign and administration aide told Politico. They are Julius Caesaring this man. So, folks, I am not going to say this is going to work. What I am saying is this is how you weaken a candidate. This is why the chairman here is saying, hey, y'all need to stop talking publicly, okay? If you're a Democratic Party official, pundit, etc., focus your time on talking about Trump. You need to be talking about Trump, not talking about Biden. You need to be talking about Trump. What this shows is that their chairman there is not able to keep everybody on code. Folks, you're supposed to be scared to defy the chairman. That's the point I'm making to you. Why is it that the Democratic Party is not afraid to challenge their chairman? Why are they not afraid to defy him? I'll tell you why. Because you're just the Negro they put up there. You got Jamie Harrison there and you got Kamala Harris behind Biden. Yeah, but you're the controlled Negroes. You see, if Nancy Pelosi were running the thing, what? You wouldn't be seeing this. If Nancy Pelosi were running things, you wouldn't be seeing this happening. If she was the chairwoman, this would not be occurring. They would be terrified. They would be too damn scared to sit up here and buck up on her. They wouldn't do that. That's not going to happen. So Jamie is out here having to take to Twitter to try to get the party under control. That's what he's reduced to doing. And the reason for it is because he doesn't have any stroke. He doesn't have any pull. He's not a power broker. He's just been put in position and nobody is worried or afraid. See, this is what happens when you get given a position. I want you to understand something. When you're given a position, you're allowed, when we tell you all that these black politicians are powerless, this is what we're talking about. They are given their positions. They don't have any ability to control it or any ability to retain it on their own. It was given to them. And whoever gave it to you is the one who can take it away. Kamala Harris was given the vice presidency. She didn't earn that. It was given to her because you can get the female vote. It was given to her. And it's a powerless position, which was the reason that it was given to her, because it's powerless. And that's why you get to go ahead and sit there. But if you ever sit up and try to use whatever authority you think you have, that's where it goes bad. So you can't show us any black folk in the Democratic Party who got any power. That's why they're all sitting there. We riding with Biden. No, Biden cracked the whip and told you y'all gonna ride for me. And that's the end of that. So once again, if anybody tries to tell you about, oh, these politicians, this, that, and the other, we've always said that they're powerless. We have always made that case. We have always made that point. And this is just another reminder of why that is. My predictions on everything here still hold firm. I don't see any incentive on Biden's part to leave. I don't see any reason for that. I don't see any reason. I don't see an incentive. If he does, it doesn't do him any good. Stepping down isn't going to help Kamala Harris or anybody else. He can't take the money from his campaign and give it to Gavin Newsom or something like that. The only person it really could go to is Kamala. So if he steps down, Kamala's up next. And there is no enthusiasm behind that. There's no enthusiasm behind that. What is their motivation for doing it? I'll tell you what I think the motivation is. I'll tell you what the motivation is. There are folks in the party who see an opportunity for life after Biden, and they are staking out their claims now. You take a look at that California constituency. You take a look at that California contingency. I see entirely too many people out of California speaking out openly. And I think that California's delegation believes that if they knock off Biden in 2024, and the reason you got to knock him off is because they don't want Kamala to be able to run again in 2028. So what they want to do is clear the lane. So that's what I see happening now. They want to clear the lane for California. Mark my words, we'll see if I'm correct about it if they succeed. If they do remove Biden, then they're trying to clear the lane for Gavin Newsom. But Gavin can't do it by himself. So if he's recruited the rest of the California flunkies to come help him, that's what it'll be. He'll need their help. Look for Biden to help them out as well, by the way. But you know what would really help them? What would really help them is if they had some solid black support, and that's where things are wavering. They don't have that solid black support like they really need. They don't have that. You're not going to be able to go ahead and fake your way through everything forever. Eventually, you're going to have something you really got. You're going to have something tangible. You're going to have the ability to show that you got the black vote on your side there. And that's going to be a hell of a thing for you to be able to prove right now. So there's the real reason that Biden is where he is. You can go ahead and bring the black politicians out there, but that's not going to help you if the rank and file are starting to get weak on you. That's not going to help you if they're getting weak on you. That's what they're scared of now. Biden is weak. And I wanted to show you something else here because this is something, let me go ahead and get this for you right quick. Wanted to show you this. This is out of Philadelphia. This one's out of Philadelphia. NBC News. And this was just yesterday. By the way, fair use, NBC, fair use. So just remember that. NBC News showing this, as you can see on your screens. Where do black Philadelphia voters stand on the presidential election? Now, of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt because, of course, they're going to stack these things here. But I want you to hear some of what they were saying to them.
Does everybody know who they're voting for? Or is anybody undecided still?
I'm very undecided.
Undecided.
Right now, inflation. So I'm monitoring who's talking the most about inflation. Re-entry. I would like to see everyone who is a criminal with federal charges still be able to vote. If we can have a criminal for president, we need to allow some voting rights back that were taken illegally in the first place.
How hard has inflation hit you?
Very interesting considering the fact that it's Joe Biden who really helped kick that all off, ma'am. So, okay, if Trump's the criminal, what exactly is Biden?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
Who feels as if black voters are taken for granted, i.e. they make you promises and they don't deliver? What do you care about most?
Oh, why didn't they leave that thing up there? You show all the hands when
And they don't.
Okay. Who feels like they take the black vote for granted? Who feels like that? Okay. Please understand, folks, you didn't see, they were too scared to show stuff like this a decade ago. When Obama was in office, they tried to pretend that this didn't exist. This is with a little stacked focus group, and this is what you're getting. This is what you're getting.
Deliver. What do you care about most right now?
What are they going to do for my people that lives in the communities where I am from?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So they ain't talking about integration. Oh, boy. Oh, this is going to be a tough one here. Oh, why she got to say it like that? What are you going to do for my people? What are you going to do for my people in my community? Oh, boy. Oh, this is a totally radically different change. So that rising tide lifting all boats and all. Oh, boy. So that's not going to work?
What do you care about most right now?
What are they going to do for my people that lives in the communities where I am from? The gun violence is second in my mind. But it's what can they do for us? How can they help? How can they go into a home and help that family to save their children? We need the funding. We want the help. But
yeah, this thing has been pretty heavily edited there. So she getting right to what you're going to do for our people. And we need the funding. We need the money. So, yeah, you can see where this is going. Radically different. This dude right here. I don't know. Take a look at these fellas here. These two, where they find these two fellas? Look, what is going on here? What is happening? Where they find them? Where are they from? Come on now. I don't know where they found these two stand-ins from. These two NPCs. Non-playable characters. I couldn't help but notice that they both come from the same LGBT bar. I don't get it. Anyway.
My opinion, it starts at home.
It starts at home. Jaleel, what about you? What is most important to you right now?
Economics, education, reentry, reform.
Reentry to the criminal justice system.
Exactly. We need to save ourselves.
That's right.
If we're looking for somebody to save us, it's not going to happen.
If you look at Philadelphia and you took the most impoverished areas in Philadelphia and then you took the crime rate where the most crime is happening in Philadelphia and you laid it right there, it would almost match up perfectly. Mm-hmm. So if you're seeing that much of a correlation between poverty and crime, you have to address that on some level. If we invest in our schools, invest in our youth, we will see some changes there.
The way I would articulate it is quality of life issues, how we live our everyday lives, right? So if that's jobs, if that's housing, if that's gun violence, if that's education, like everything that makes our lives good, that's what I vote for in mind.
Who votes with guns in mind on a federal level? When you cast your ballot at a president.
So here she wants to try to get them off track and stuff. Okay, about the economics. Well, what about guns? Would you like to talk about guns?
Presidential election for senators, for members of Congress.
Now, when you say guns in mind,
gun control, issues surrounding guns, background checks, all of you do.
Yes. I mean, that's us voting with us in mind.
Yeah.
You understand? When you say that, like, this
You're
is...
talking about your family.
When you ask me, am I voting with guns in mind, that means I'm voting with me in mind. because I could very much be a victim of gun violence.
You got to keep talking about it, keep talking about it. You have to consistently let people know this is not normal. It doesn't seem like people are angry enough to say no more, no more.
Now, isn't that interesting? So these folks started talking about economics and what you're going to do specifically for us. And before the end of it, the reporter tries to make it about guns. So she lets them go on for a good long while about guns. They told you what the issue was. The real problem is, by the way, who is in the White House? Because if he'd been in the White House for 4 years and you still have the same complaint, oh, well, we found out who's responsible. So right there at the end, okay, can we change the subject? Okay. So folks are having fits out there. They're having fits out there, and that's why Biden is under the pressure. He's feeling the pressure because he doesn't have the support that he used to have and used to be able to count on there. Folks are breaking ranks. People are breaking ranks on him. And folks are warning Jamie here. I told you all, 10%. It would not take a whole lot. You don't need to have a landslide against him. You just need a weakening of support. You just need a weakening to have a reckoning. All it takes right now is a weakening to have a reckoning. I am a bit reluctant to discuss this next thing, although I do feel I would be remiss in my duties if I did not. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who just won re-election in Houston, as we covered here before in the program, had announced last month that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It's a very dangerous form of cancer, by the way. And 1 month later, she is deceased. So, condolences to her family and her relations and loved ones. I don't mock things like that or whatever. Certainly, though, I think it does cast an eye going forward toward the future, and there is an opportunity to address a few things in that regard. So that's what I intend to do. Before I do that, we're going to take a very brief non-commercial break first. Although I do want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support here. Nancy, my man Cornell. We got some new members here on the chat room. Cornell Sly, thank you very much for your support here as well. So our new channel members, welcome here. Zavon Scotts of Seven'sville Ham. Everyone else here, Cyberdyne, thank you very much for your support as well. We're going to take a very brief non-commercial break. When we come back, I want to discuss Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and what you do going forward. This is the Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess, and I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One. And to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today. to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And I want to go ahead and review this as well. There's a clip here from CNN when the news that happened there. I want to go ahead and play that for you.
Stand by for me because we have some breaking news tonight. It's incredibly sad news. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, a 30-year fixture in the United States Congress, she once led the Congressional Black Caucus. We've learned tonight that she has died. She was 74 years old. Jackson Lee just last month revealed that she had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She was undergoing treatment. And in announcing the diagnosis, the Congresswoman said this: "The road ahead will not be easy, but I stand in faith that God will strengthen me." Jackson Lee first rose to prominence in 1989, winning an at-large bid to the Houston City Council. Her career touched virtually every human rights issue, marked by work on police reform and helping enshrine Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Congressman, she's your colleague in the House of Representatives. Your thoughts tonight?
Juneteenth, reparations, a national hero. And, you know, she ran for mayor. I think she was trying to come home. You know, she may have been trying to come home, but she will be forever in our hearts, no matter where we are at home.
Yeah, it is a sad moment, and also just tragic to see cancer once again taking someone's life.
So that was what happened with Sheila Jackson Lee. I'd like to take a moment here to reflect on some lessons. And I will attempt to make this, distance this from Congresswoman Lee to an extent, because here's the thing that I want us to have going forward. We are going to have to be a far more strident generation. We are going to have to be more hardline. We are going to have to be more uncompromising. We cannot allow people to use trick language. We can't allow people to deceive us. We cannot take half measures. We cannot seek to be entertaining. We cannot toe the party line. We cannot be non-invasive. We have to be disruptive. We have to be invasive. We have to be uncompromising. We have been pushing the line about reparations for years. And we have defined what reparations is. We have not had any support at the congressional level. We don't have any. So for somebody to try to give credit for that to anyone at the congressional level, that is dishonest. Jason, why do you say that? Because you do not have a congressional hearing where you bring Coleman Cruz in front of Congress to speak on reparations. You don't have, that's not a legitimate hearing. You don't have a hearing about reparations and then you bring Coleman Cruz for that. That's an illegitimate hearing. First of all, he has no knowledge. Second of all, he has no standing. So it is completely wrong and disingenuous to bring him up there so that he can disrupt the proceedings. You see, if we were talking about LGBT or illegals, they would not allow somebody up there who's specifically going to be talking about what they shouldn't get. If you were talking about Jews in Israel, they would not bring some Coleman Goldstein up there. They would not do that. They wouldn't do that. It's only when it's time to discuss us that all of a sudden, well, they bring up people to sit up here and talk against us and against our interests. All of a sudden, you get to have an open forum to talk against our interests. For everybody else, they don't allow that. They don't allow that. So that's the reason why I think it is so important that as we see here, over the last couple of years, John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, you've had a number of folks from the old guard, and without me being too abrasive, what I'm saying is that those of us, as we are emerging into power and things, we have to understand exactly how we got here. We have to understand exactly how we got here and exactly what the mistakes were that have been made. We don't need yet another blackface in a high place. And if you are going to win the national conversation about politics and what it has to be, we're going to have to beef everybody up. We cannot afford to be soft-spoken, and we cannot afford to be compromising. We cannot afford to spare people's feelings. You got black folk who are more abrasive and more confrontational about their rap music and then all of a sudden they become fragile when it comes to politics. No. No, see, we have to have priorities. We have to have priorities. And our generation is going to have to do things much differently than what we saw before. It will have to be much different from what we've seen before. See, what happens is you have folks who are owned by the parties. There's a reason why white society and Asian society, there's a reason why they can do things different. Listen closely, Michael Imhotep. Listen closely here, Michael Imhotep. Since very clearly all of this is new to you. White politicians can run for office on white money. Latino politicians can run for office on Latino money. Asian politicians run for office on Asian money. As black people, we cannot afford to have a situation where we overlook the economic component that is critical, because when you have black politicians who are being funded by the very white supremacist power structure that we are pointing out oppresses us, that's a problem. See, Michael doesn't quite understand how the economics play into the politics of it. You can't discuss the politics of it without the economics. If there are not adequate economics, you're going to have an issue. But furthermore, whoever is paying for that politician, that's who they're going to be beholden to. So this is how you end up having black politicians who get the black vote, but because they've got white money, when they get in the office, all of a sudden, black people's interests go straight out the window. How in the world can you be around for decades and decades and we can't actually name anything that got done? Juneteenth? What is the tangible benefit to us of Juneteenth? What are the tangibles we get? I know the symbolism. I get that part. What are the tangibles we get? See, that's what they've learned with us, is that when they approach us, all of a sudden we get fed symbolism. So, okay, try this a little bit over here. Oh, this is symbolic. Oh, can't you be seen? Oh, look, you got a national holiday. Everybody sees all of you now. And I'm like, yeah, but where are the tangibles? What's the tangible benefit of that? What do we get from that? What's the tangible part of it? This worked swimmingly for previous generations. Previous generations put a very high premium on visibility. They wanted to be seen and acknowledged. They put an outrageously high premium on visibility. That's why when we talk like we do, we sound crazy to the older folk. They're like, wait a minute, y'all ain't talking about being seen. What good is all this if you can't be seen? So just understand, in their minds, that's the problem. In their minds, the problem is that we don't want to be seen. We want power, not recognition. So that's a hard thing for them to swallow. And that's why they're making so many arguments to the contrary. They're making arguments to the contrary because they want us to get back where we were, and they're terrified. This is why when you're doing these focus groups, you're doing focus groups and talking to people and speaking to them, and all of a sudden you're hearing radically different things than you heard before. Let me give you a comparison. When Jimbo Jangles was on ABC News, and you all heard me play that here a couple weeks ago, when Jimbo Jangles Clyburn, when he was on ABC News, you remember he was asked about what it was that he was going to be doing. What does he expect from Biden? I don't expect nothing except, in the future from a kid. I mean, nice little orchard to grow up under and just have a little place here to clip my toenails. Jim Clyburn made it very clear he doesn't expect anything, and that he's advocating for nothing. Outright said it. So just imagine how terrifying this is when you're getting together black voters in various places, and the first thing they're talking about is the economics. That's the first thing they're discussing. They're not discussing vague generalities. They're not discussing being acknowledged. They're not discussing getting recognition. They're not discussing, can you invite us to the White House so we can be seen? Or can you come down to the barbershop? That's not what people are saying. They're saying something different in various places. So you see, you're not going to get any traction. That Juneteenth thing, and I warned them back then, you're not going to get any traction out of that. That symbolism worked on the olders. That's not going to work on the new cats. That's not going to work. Not at all. We're speaking a different language. We're speaking a different language. Now, let's be clear. The Democrats went to the wall. Now you can see probably part of the reason that they wanted Sheila Jackson Lee out of that seat. Now you can probably see some of the reasons why they wanted Sheila Jackson Lee out of that seat. Is there going to have to be a special election to fill her seat? At some point, that seat's going to come up for election. So if that happens, are you sure who's going to get it? The young lady who was running for it before? That's a strong possibility. But then again, they could do you like they did you in Houston. And they might send a white candidate in there, to get all the little folks on the plantation back in line. They might go ahead and do that and get all the black folk back in line if they can. Wouldn't that be interesting? So the question that we have to ask is, do we still have an appetite for white control and white dominance? That's the question. Do we still have an appetite for that? Are we afraid to say that, we don't really have a taste for that? Are we ready to say that? Are we ready to say what this young woman has said, that, hey, she wants to hear about her issues. She wants to hear about what you're going to do for her people in her neighborhood. You notice how that's radically different. Remember, they told us, Kamala Harris outright said, you can't do nothing for just black folk. You got to do something for everybody. You can't just do something for just black folk. You notice how it's not flying as easily and as high and as well as they need it to. The responses you're getting are radically different. It's not flying as high and as fast and as far as they need it to. These are not things that you heard in 2008 and 2012. At the Black channel, that's what was being said. But in the greater society, that was not what was being said. That wasn't being said back then. But now you're hearing something different. And that is why I'm saying that every time something like this occurs, that is an opportunity. That's an opportunity for us to be heard. So you're not going to hear me saying a whole lot about Sheila Jackson Lee because you already know her record. And at this point right now, her family and her friends can see to her affairs. For those of us in society here, we are looking at where we're going next. We're looking at where we're going next. And we have to ask ourselves, do we want to repeat where we've been? Is that what we're looking for? So that's why I'm starting the conversation now. Who is it who you want to put in that position? Do you have politicians who are speaking for our interests regardless of a vote? Are they advocates for our interests? Or are they advocates who are trying to figure out how to circumvent our interests? That's a big, big difference. That's a big, big difference to have because we are the only people who have politicians who actually advocate against our interests. We have a hearing on reparations and they bring in people to speak against it. We have a hearing on reparations and they bring in people to speak against it. Now, you see, with Jewish people and Latinos and Arab people, they would have brought in experts. They would have brought in economists. They would have brought in Dr. Claude Anderson. They would have brought in people who would give the rundown of the facts and the figures and the numbers. They would bring in professors from Yale. They would bring in those people to go ahead and establish these things and make the case. That's what they would have done. But that isn't what they did. They bring in individuals who are not credentialed to speak against us just to advocate being against it. And I have to put that squarely at the feet of the Congressional Black Caucus. I have to put that squarely at their feet. And going forward, we cannot tolerate having that situation perpetuate itself. I want you all to understand, we are the first generation. We are the first Black generation that openly speaks against the puppet Black political leadership. Damn! Please understand that. We are the first generation ever that has openly spoken out against them. And we're not speaking out simply because we're discontent. We're speaking out and saying exactly what the issues are and exactly why that's a problem. This has never happened before. This has never happened before. You've never seen it. And I want that to be loud and clear for anybody else who wants those seats. If you want Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, we need to find out who you supporting. What is the agenda? What is the interest? Are you even an advocate for our interests? Because everybody else out there has somebody advocating for them, including non-citizens. We get told nobody can advocate for us. Now that's what we get told. And that's nonsense. That's nonsense. We should not have anybody advocating against us and then we vote for them. That's not the way that works. That's the real treachery of Bowling Ball Martin. You have people who are advocating against your interests and then telling you, now come vote for me. They're holding congressional hearings talking about Donald Trump and not holding one talking about reparations, not one talking about a national plan for the descendants of American slaves. Nobody's having that hearing. You have the Republicans holding hearings talking about these social media companies, and yet the Congressional Black Caucus is not holding a hearing where we put the case for reparations in clear contrast and relief. See, that's what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do if you have a Black Caucus is that Black Caucus is supposed to be put to the floor for Black folks' issues here, particularly the descendants of the slaves, And what they're supposed to be doing is putting together a week of testimony. You should have all of them lined up, facts, figures, illustrations. You should have all that lined up so that clearly explains what it is. Not for Congress. Not for Congress. Not for Congress, but so that you are making your case to the American people. See, they've had hearings from Boeing. Just a couple of weeks ago, they brought Boeing's people in and had a congressional hearing there. You had protesters in the audience protesting Boeing. See, that's what that's supposed to be. The issue for Boeing right now is not Congress. You already know Congress is beholden to Boeing. No, the issue right now is to bring Boeing in front of folks so that the rest of the country have a national conversation and they can see that. See, here's the issue here. When reparations is whispered in quiet tones, that's the kiss of death. Their job is to try to intimidate us so that we whisper about reparations and don't say it more than once or twice a year. Just be quiet about it. That's not how you promote an agenda. You promote an agenda by normalizing hearing the word, normalizing speaking the word. That's how you make that happen. That's the reason why you have to stay on the trail and keep repeating the agenda over and over again. It can't be something that is taboo. It's got to be something that everybody knows about. You have to be unapologetic and unbashful in saying it. You cannot be afraid. You can't be afraid. But folks gonna say we want a hands out. Folks, normalize people hearing that word. And the more it's normalized, the less shocking it is. The less shocking it is, the easier it is to get the agenda through. But if we treat it like it's a forbidden word, then everybody else doesn't hear it very often. If you're going to advocate for your position, you must advocate consistently. Having black so-called political leaders who get on television and they talk about illegal aliens far, far more than they talk about reparations, that's a problem. When you've got so-called black politicians who are standing up for non-citizens, people who can't even vote for them, can't do anything for them, they're standing up for them and their interests unapologetically. And yet when you show up, all of a sudden, here come excuses. That's a problem. That's a problem. You can't name any other ethnic group in this country that their political representatives will not even speak their interests. The Latinos ain't afraid for you to have folks talking about their non-citizens. Do you realize how insane that is to be talking about the rights of non-citizens? And yet that's what they're talking about. And meanwhile, for us, the most credentialed of citizens, and won't even mention it. Do you realize they talk about health care much more than they talk about black care? And our health care issues in many cases are traced right back to the economics. If you're poor, you're a victim of crime. If you're poor, you're a victim of poor health. If you're poor, you're a victim of poor education. You notice how all those things tie together? Notice how all those things tie together? If you're impoverished and the economics is messed up, well, you know, everything else is poor quality also. Isn't that amazing? And the real shame of it here, the real embarrassment is to have so-called black representatives who will not do that. I would also like to remind you of one more thing here, and folks may not like this when I say this. You might not like it, but it's the truth. The other thing that we don't have, white society, and I've said this forever, they have advocates in political office who are ready to die for their interests.
And deal with it, nigga.
See, we spent the entirety of the Obama administration with Negroes talking about, Jason, you gonna get Obama killed. Obama can't say that because them folks will take him out. See, that's the civil rights generation. That's their idea of advocating for something. But over on the other side, you notice their political representatives are ready to die for the people. They're not sitting up here. See, you got so many scheming people in the electorate who, if they had their way, then they wouldn't give a damn. They would sell us all out too. The folks who voted for Obama, knowing what they were voting for there, they'd sell the rest of us out too, if they had the opportunity. The ones supporting the Negroes still supporting Biden and Harris, they would sell all of us out too if they had the chance. That's why they admire them. Like, wow, they sure is getting over on Negroes. Wish I could. Over on the other side, that's not what you have. Donald Trump very nearly got his brains blown out on national television and will not compromise. Showed up at the Republican National Convention and grabbed J.D. Vance. He's doubling down on hardcore right wing. Meanwhile, we've got our black representatives who are, people in the electorate are saying that y'all gonna get them in trouble. Y'all gonna get them killed. Your political representatives are supposed to represent your interests no matter what. Your political representatives are supposed to represent your interests no matter what. They take an oath of office which acknowledges that their life is on the line. That's what they're supposed to give their blood oath to you, up to and including death. Their job is to put everything on the line for the people. That's what they're running for. They're running for office to be your representative. If I can threaten your representative and he abandons your interest, then guess what? At best, he's a poor representative, and at worst, he's not a representative at all. People, too many of y'all sit up here and act and think and react like you're scared ass, cowardly ass, deadbeat dad. It is what it is. Everybody's not supposed to be that. Your political representatives are supposed to be willing to lay down their lives. Think about this for a few moments here. You tell soldiers in the military who were not elected. We tell soldiers in the military that they're supposed to be ready to lay their lives down. And the politicians who were actually elected, you got folks out here in the masses talking about we need to protect them and make sure don't nothing happen to them. So it's all right if they ignore our interests because we need to make sure they stay where they at. What good is keeping them in office if they're not going to promote our interests? Your politicians are supposed to do that. And I'm not sitting up here speaking out of school or out of turn. You all have been following me now for well over a decade. You have seen the hot spots I've been in. You've seen the dangerous places I've been in. You've seen the situation as it's occurred. How is it that I, as a guy on the internet, risk life and limb? The members of the new black media, you've seen folks get marched out of their houses at gunpoint. Now, how is it that we are expected to stare down barrels of guns and not flinch and not move, and yet your overpaid, overcompensated political operatives, they're not expected to do anything? So we got to protect them. You want to know why it is that the folks on the other side get so much done? They are willing to die for the interests of the people. They're willing to die for that. In other words, they're willing to outbid you. They're willing to put more on the table. They're willing to put more at stake. You're not going to be able to beat somebody when they're willing to put up more and lose more than you. You're not going to be able to beat them. These folks are willing to put everything up there. And then we start sitting up here arguing for why our so-called black representatives get to ignore us. You have folks arguing for that? That's the problem with having all the little old church folk. I said it.
And deal with it, nigga.
Come on now, let's just keep it real. The old church folks do that. That's what they do. They sit up there in church. The pastor is sitting up there driving his big old car. They're advocating for him. The man who's supposed to be most in danger, they're advocating to protect him, and the congregation is taking all the bullets. He gets all the benefits and none of the risk. They get all the risk and none of the benefits, and sitting there clapping for it. No wonder the politicians think that's how we're going to respond to everything. No wonder the politicians play it the exact same damn way. No wonder. The black political establishment does it the exact same way. Right down to having the big old fancy suits. Ain't that right, Kwame Kilpatrick? Right down to that. We don't have warriors in black politics. We don't have that. We don't have folks who make it their job to upset the status quo. We don't have that. We don't have that. And we are not going to be able to change the black body politic in mass until we get a critical mass of people completely dissatisfied with the way things are. This is that battle for hearts and minds I'm referring to. These are conversations that don't happen often. Think about this for a few moments. Do you realize the money that goes into an Essence Festival, the money that goes, into a Revolt TV, the money that goes into these political campaigns and these political campaign rallies? Do you realize the amount of investment that goes into that in order to get people together and tell them don't expect anything? Yeah, there's a battle for hearts and minds. So just remember, we're fighting on our end, but you got these other folks who got way more resources than us, and they're fighting on their end to tell everybody everything's fine, don't upset the status quo. Just keep the faith, everything's coming together. We have to make people completely dissatisfied with the status quo. They have to be dissatisfied with the way things are. They have to be completely disgruntled about it. That's what it's got to be. So if you ask me what it is that we do here in the New Black Media, and I as your anchor man, if you want to know what it is, the job is simple: to make sure that you are properly informed, that you're properly armed with the intellectual firepower that you need, and so that you are made to understand that you cannot be satisfied with the status quo. You must be discontent. You must be hostile about it. And when you see folk trying to run for office and they are openly avoiding your issues, or they have a track record of avoiding it, we cannot refuse to speak out. We cannot refuse to do that. Not at all. So going forward, after Sheila Jackson Lee, going forward, I want us to continue doing what we've been doing. I want us to continue doing what we've been doing, which is to speak out unapologetically about what our issues and what our agenda is. Say it in no uncertain terms. Do not water it down. Don't try to make it safe. See, our political discourse does not need to be safe. Our political discourse does not need to sit up here and try to figure out what people want to hear and, can you be polite about it? No, we actually don't need to be. We actually don't need to be, because these folks are going to tell you that you're not polite unless you're not mentioning the issue. That's why you can't let other people decide what polite is or what polite isn't. If we allow them to decide and define what polite is, all they're going to tell us is that you standing up for your issues is impolite. Well, I tell you the same thing about politeness that I tell you about unity. If that's how you define politeness, then to hell with politeness. Time to get rude. Time to get rude. But what you're going to have to do is make sure that the people at the Grassroots and all these other folks can actually see what it is. That's what we're going to have to do. You cannot assume that everybody gets it. Those of you listening here, you get it. In Houston and places like that, we got to start the work to make sure that they get it. The Grassroots has to get it. That's what has to happen. The Grassroots has to get it. Without that, we don't make progress. But I just thought I would give you a reminder. Take a look on your screen. Could you imagine Barack Obama doing that?
Nigga, please.
Could you imagine John Lewis ever doing that? Nigga, please. Could you imagine Elijah Cummings or any Kamala Harris doing that? Lie. Could you imagine it? Jimbo Jangles Clyburn, could you imagine that? Jimbo Jangles would run away squealing like a Karen. His thong would start to bunch on him. You would never have Jimbo Jangles do that. He'd be sitting there looking around all bug-eyed like the Nutty Professor. You could never have it. But I just wanted you to know, if you are against Trump, that's your business. But by the way, your opposition is built different. They're ready to die for this. And their age is not an excuse. Everybody is expected to be willing to take a bullet around here. Do you all get that? Everybody on their side is expected to be willing to take a bullet around here. That's a requisite. They are expected to be willing to do that. We have conversations with our black political leadership, and do you notice that that never comes up? See, these are questions that the other side doesn't have to ask. We have to ask it because it's never been established or settled with the other side. Oh, it's settled and established like a son of a gun. You show up here, you got to be ready to take a bullet. Congressman Steve Scalise, I can go down the list. You got to be ready to die over here. You cannot lead if you're not ready to die. That's just how serious it's got to be. You got to be ready to die. Ketanji Brown Jackson, could you imagine that heifer so much as having her coffee latte inconvenienced? Much less being willing to lay down her life for this, it ain't gonna happen. If they can't show up on the cocktail circuit and show up at the club and be a celebrity, they're not interested in that. We don't have political leadership that is willing to die for this. But quite frankly, the civil rights generation does not vote that way. They're dying for it is not what they vote for. They're looking to be pampered and cushioned. We're the ones out here saying damn comfort. Do y'all understand how crazy that seems to them? That we of our generation have the opportunity to be pampered and coddled, and we're consciously saying no. That we don't want that. Do you realize the warrior spirit you have to have engendered in you? That the previous generation looked to be soft and coddled, and yet you're not. You have everything at your disposal to be even more soft and more coddled than they were, and you're consciously saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm taking the harder road. I'm taking the harder route. Do y'all realize what that makes us? You realize how special you got to be able to look at that and say, I'm going to deny comfort? That's people who get things done. Those are people who change things. The folks who are saying, don't point me toward the weak route, point me towards the hard work. That changes things. That makes things a lot different. That's the only way that you win in this dynamic. You got to be willing to put it all out there. The reason that we don't respect the so-called black political leadership is because we have clearly seen they're not willing to risk or lose anything. And we cannot respect or follow so-called leaders who we are willing to lose more than they are. Your leadership is supposed to be willing to lose more than you. We've got leadership that isn't willing to lose what we are. We're willing to lose a lot more than them. I cannot respect you, much less follow you. I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm not trying to be like you. There's the big problem is that you're supposed to be somebody we can look up to. And how can I support you when I'm taking a look at you and I don't want to be like you? I don't want to be like you. However, you might disagree. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and post the link for the Zoom tonight. We are having problems out of Blog Talk. I'm going to have to find an alternative to that. So for whatever reason, it has not been working all this weekend. So for whatever reason, we're going to have to do something different here. But I'm going to go ahead and post the link for Zoom in the chat room there for you all. So you go ahead and you can use Zoom tonight if you are so inclined to do so. Just to make sure we don't have a trolling issue here. I'm not going to necessarily make you get on camera, but I will make sure you have to have the camera on, at least on my end, just so we can make sure we don't have any trolling issues. So we can have that for you there as well. So I'll go ahead and put the link up there for you all. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone who's contributed to support tonight's program. PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support here. Mr. Anderson. Thank you very much here, my man, Mr. Richburg. We appreciate that. Mr. Pressure, Mark B, and everyone else here. Thank you very much for your support. That is very much appreciated here. I'll go ahead and open that up if you all want to use Zoom. If you're not, that's perfectly fine. We don't have to do that there as well either. I just wanted to use this as a moment, though, and an opportunity for us to see about realigning ourselves, because when you see that the political landscape is changing, especially for the one that we control, we have to ask ourselves, who will our future political leaders be? Who are the future political leaders going to be, and what are they going to advocate like? Guess we're going to find out here. All right, let me go ahead and get over here on Zoom. All right, I got Abel over here on Zoom. Abel, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on your broadcast tonight. The thing that I've been mostly intrigued when it comes to the whole situation, when it comes to the Democrats, is just that the thing is just that they're just, the way I look at it is they're in pretty much more than panic mode. They're just pretty much on full desperation mode, and I don't think there's any way that they can get themselves out of it. Even if Biden even withdrew from the race. Like, Kamala Harris is not the solution. Gavin Newsom is pretty much a last desperation attempt. I mean, let me ask you a question, though. Do you see the Democrats even losing again in 2028 and beyond, like, say, 2032 in the long run, if they continue this, downward spiral?
No. I mean, certainly if they continue a downward spiral, yes, but it would take a lot to have something going on like that far. So here's the real thing. Here's the way that the math right now, as I talk to you tonight, from my analysis, is adding up. Joe Biden was already a quintessentially weak candidate to begin with. He really admitted that, I think he admitted in the recent interview recently that he was supposed to be just like supposed to be just one term. And then he said, but the situation was so bad that there was just so much that needed to be done here that he's just got to stick around. I'm like, okay, well, all hands up. Whoever thought a politician would ever say something like that. All right. So with that being the case, now he's trying to figure out here, okay, what does he do? If you're losing the black support, they're just asking, where will it go? And what they're gambling on is that there isn't really a safe harbor for it to stay in. So what they're expecting is there'll be discontent in one election, and then in 2028, it'll swing back to their way. So as far as they're concerned, they're thinking that's the worst case scenario. It goes bad in 2024, but now they'll be back in 2028. That's the calculus they're making. Now, if they knock Biden off, all bets are off in that regard. Kamala Harris is not viable. She's not going to be more likable in 2028 than she was in 2020. She's not going to be more likable then. So their whole cynical math is that eventually we're going to have to break down and give them what they want. That's their calculus. Y'all are going to they're betting that we are going to be so devoid of choices that eventually we're just going to break down and vote for the lesser of two evils. That's the calculus they're making. If they lose in 2024, they're going to be expecting to swing back in 2028. If they lose again in 2028, seismic shift. Look for everything to change at that point. Look for there to be a lot of complaining. there's only one issue with this year. To try to save face, not because they believe it. I've covered this before. They're going to try to say that Biden was the reason he lost, which of course is completely neglecting and dismissing everything that was happening before that debate. He was in trouble before the debate. It wasn't like his numbers were good before then. The numbers were already in trouble. But they're going to try to scapegoat that because remember, that's the tactic they use. Well, you Negroes don't decide anything. Right up until election day, we need y'all to show up. So they'll swing back and say, we didn't have anything to do with it. And then you're going to start seeing the stories start leaking. They're going to go over the numbers. Because remember, then you have midterm elections. That's going to be their first sign of breaking and acknowledging it. So to answer your question, yes, it will happen, but only if the results are consistent. 2024 goes bad. 2028 goes bad. It would have to be 2028. But I'm telling y'all right now, they're not going to change anything wholesale if 2024 goes bad. 2028 is the one you're looking for. But you don't get 2028 if 2024 goes well. So if they do good in 2024, you don't get a 2028. If you do get 2024, just remember that's step number 1. Step number 2 is 2028. And I will say something, not that I'm really convinced it will happen. I'm actually not convinced at all. I'm just saying there's an opportunity there, although I am not counting on it. J.D. Vance, Jason, are you serious? Yes. J.D. Vance is a young man. He wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy. It was made into a movie by Ron Howard. And certainly, like I say, I think that young man strikes me as a politician. He's young. He's in his 30s. I think he's saying what he needs to get in the position where he wants to be at. But if he doesn't make some serious... Donald Trump has had history with black folk, Mike Tyson, other people. J.D. Vance doesn't. If Trump is trying to do what he did with the Supreme Court and choose somebody younger who's going to have a longer tail going forward in 2028 and 2032, J.D. Vance doesn't have credentials outside of that. Trump can get 5 to 7% of the black vote. J.D. Vance can't.
Right.
If he doesn't get to work on that, he doesn't have a future. Because the problem, the Democrats are not doing good with their base, but the problem with the Republicans is they're not doing good with demographics. The demographics are changing. Doubling down on white men is like the Democrats doubling down on old black folk. You're going after a demographic that's diminishing every year. And if you don't open up something different, it won't help. What about the Asians? Not enough of them and not coming soon enough. So there's where the other problem would come from. So I hope that answers your question, but if they slide in 2028 and 2032, 2024 and 2028, those are the two you're looking for. If they kept sliding, you're going to see, my prediction is the seismic shift happens before you get to 32. 28 is when it happens. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that if they lose in 2024, I wouldn't expect them to change right off the bat, but just if I'm going to be more, I will monitor 2028 to see how things go. If they get humiliated again, in 2028, then I think that's pretty much a wrap. They're going to have to change. And if they don't, then it's going to get even worse. So that's my initial thoughts. So
this November,
thank you so much.
All eyes are going to be on the black vote this November. This November in 2024, all eyes on the black vote. Particularly, they're going to be looking at certain states. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those will be the big three they're going to look at. If they see that the black vote has softened there, look for conversations about us to begin this year. Before Biden flubbed the debates, it was looking like it was going to be Proposition 8 in California all over again, where they were talking about the black vote all the time. They're going to try to play tough for a little bit, but you want my exact prediction? If the black vote goes soft in Michigan, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, those are the three. Write my words down, mark them. Those are the three you look for. If it goes bad in those three places, look for Morning Joe and other people to start a whispering campaign against us. Now, they will acknowledge Joy Reid. they're going to unleash their little attack dog in Joy Reid. Biden loses, and if he loses those 3 states, Joy Reid's going to go on the warpath against us. She's the one they're going to send. Or at least she's going to lead the charge. Rachel Maddow, not so much. You all write that down. MSNBC is going to come out against us, and Joy Reid will probably be the loudest voice against us at that point. So, mark my words. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me see if I can bring Emmett up here. Emmett is working on connecting his audio here for us. Mark my words, folks. Like I said, they're going to try to ignore us. If things go bad for Biden, before the debate, they're going to have to blame it on us. If things go bad for Biden, they're going to try to deny that it was us who did it. But if the numbers go bad in 3 or 4 of those swing states, look for them on election night to try to kind of play it off for a little bit. They're going to talk about Biden, support was weak, but then they're going to circle back around and then they're going to be talking about, oh, well, that black vote didn't show up in Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan. Okay, here on Zoom, Emmett, I'm going to give you 5 seconds here, Emmett. I'm not going to put you on screen, but make sure we don't have any issues here. I just need you to turn your camera and your microphone on for me. We're not going to put you on screen, but if you want to participate by Zoom, that's going to be what we're going to need here. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds here to go ahead and fix that for us. If you don't have that, permanent vacation. So Emmett, you have 5 seconds to go ahead and resolve that for me here. Waiting for Emmett to do that. Okay, Emmett is going on a permanent vacation. Let's go ahead and see if we can get Anthony up here. All right, Anthony. What's on your mind? Okay, Anthony is trying to get his audio to connect here. So we'll wait for them to do that. Everybody got the Zimbabwe broadband tonight? Okay, what is Anthony doing? Anthony was there, then Anthony is gone. So Anthony was there, he was looking around, he was trying to get his life together, and all of a sudden, gave up. All right. Please understand that there's a radical difference in how we do things because we're actually talking about real physical things. These other folks are not doing that. They're talking about symbolism still and trying to appeal to folks who want that. But the more we talk to folk, the less satisfied they are with symbolic gestures. That's a very good sign to have, by the way. That's a very good sign to have. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get OGK Network. OGK, I just need you to go ahead, if you will, just to make sure we don't have any issues. I'm not going to put you on screen, but I do need your camera on for me here just to make sure we don't have any issues. You will not be, nobody else is going to see you except me. All right, OGK, and what's on your mind?
I just had a question. Basically, the problem that's going on with the Democrats, do you think that the problem that's going on with the Democrats is like what Professor Black-Chu said, that the Democrats don't run their party like an actual political party. They run it like a DC social club.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the strategy that they use because the Republican Party is more about people with mutual interests and power brokers. The Democratic Party is more about white overseers corralling different demographics. So yeah, that's what a social club is. The folks who run it, you got the country club, you got the folks who run it, and HOA, you got the folks who run it, and their real job is to herd the cats and all the other people there for them to manage all these different differing demographics.
Because I've always thought, to me, if they ran their party like the Republican Party, then I always thought that the amount of representatives of Black folks, especially in the southern states, would be way more than what's going on. Because I always looked at those southern states as kind of like they're Republican, but I'm like, are they Republican because of the base of Republicans, base of people that supports them, or are they Republican states because the Democrats failed to invest into those actual areas, in the black folks in those actual areas, to promote a powerful Democratic base of representatives?
Well, it's actually across those things. Okay, look, in every state, the state legislature gets to draw its political districts and its congressional lines. So the states get to draw those. This is why you keep seeing them sometimes get challenged at the Supreme Court. So the states get to do that. And what generally happens is what we call gerrymandering, which is where they redraw the lines to basically try to corral all the black folk into one district. So you'll have 10, 12 districts to a state. And yeah, if you evenly dispersed it or whatever, or drew this district lines a certain way that it distributes them more evenly, then yeah, you'd have black folk in 6 or 7 districts. Instead, what they tend to do is try to corral them all in one. So they try to draw the lines in such a way that it corrals that black vote in one district. So you get one little old black representative. Yeah, but he's outnumbered with 10 or 12 more white folk, because of the way in which they've done the districts. So sometimes it'll be horizontal, sometimes it'll be vertical, sometimes it'll be triangle shaped. That's the game that goes on in these southern states. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, we can go down the list. Now that the Supreme Court has gotten real lax on that, because they used to enforce that, now they've gotten more lax to allow the states to do whatever they want to do now. So look for a lot more of that to occur. Look for that to occur more openly. So remember, your states get to draw their own district lines. If it gets challenged in court, it's going to be up to the Supreme Court to say, yeah, you have to go back and redraw those lines. But the Supreme Court just upheld Louisiana. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing you're seeing. So now when the Democrats do get in Congress and whatnot, that's still not an excuse for them not to do anything. And remember, that's certainly not an excuse not to even speak on our issues. As a matter of fact, that's more of a reason to do so. So they keep giving us the po-mouth story. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi and her husband trading stocks and getting rich, and then giving you and me sob stories. So if they do get in the office, the whole thing is, okay, even if we just got one little old district, their job is still to represent our interests, and that kind of thing falls off. So they do a very good job of selling you on the idea that even if they do get elected, they still ain't got to do anything. That's the part right there that we've run thin and run out of. We're not tolerating that response anymore. If we put you in office, we expect you to damn well do something.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'll land my plane.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. I expect you to do something, even if it is simply speaking up for our interests. Even if you don't have the votes for legislation, that should make you even louder, and that should make you even more uncompromising in speaking for our interests. If you don't have the votes, there's no reason not to. You got nothing to lose. What are you doing? Let me go ahead and see if I can get Michael here on the line here on Zoom. Let me see if I can get Michael. All right, Michael, you're on here. Let me go ahead and make sure you're on camera so we can just make sure no silliness. I'll give Michael 5 seconds to do that, where I'm not going to put you on screen for other folks to see you. The only person who'll see you is me. So please don't do a strip tease or nothing else. Don't get your OnlyFans ready, but I'm going to be the only person who sees you.
Hey, Jason. Hey, man. Hey, I'm looking for a shirt right now, man.
No, what is all these topless niggas calling me tonight? What is everybody auditioning for their OnlyFans? What is they doing?
Bro, it's summertime.
Brother, I'm in Louisiana, and I'm in Louisiana in July. And I got a shirt on, so I'm just about 3 niggas so far. It's like, okay, everybody getting there. They getting seductive. So I'm sorry I'm making y'all uncomfortable. All right, Michael, what's on your mind?
Yeah, man. Look, so my whole thing is, I think that what's going on, or what I think we should be doing, is all these other groups that actually get stuff. If that group doesn't have power themselves, or have like super PACs or action packs, they have a white group that is advocating for that. And the part of the problem is, I feel like as Black people, or especially as FBAs, we are like a third world nation, like one of these African nations that's sitting on all this gold and diamonds and oil, but we don't have the industrial capacity or the engineers and know-how to generate. Like, how do you start a super PAC? How do you start a lobby? You know what I mean? Because it's like we can't get the resources until we provide the money to these politicians to, lobby them or bribe them legally to give them us the resources. That's how APAC works. They flood billions of dollars into these politicians, and then for that billions of dollars, they get a country where they get free healthcare, free education. They can steal a house from these Palestinians if they want to. So we have to actually get our money right first, and behind certain causes like a black crime. Anti-black hate crime bill or reparations, all that has to be funded by money. So what do you think about that? How do we get the information?
Look, this is what we've been doing now for going on for 3-4 decades. Here's the problem. I want to put this in concrete terms so that you understand how these things work and how they don't work and why you're making the question you're making here tonight, which is a good question, by the way. First of all, let me find out, how old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay, now let's go ahead and start from here. Peak earning ability for black adults usually happens between the ages of 41 and 47. So I've done this for years and stuff. So we usually don't hit our peak earning years as black people until between the ages of 41 and 47. And then it kind of just maintains after that till you retire. So in other words, what I'm telling you is it takes about 20 years before you become economically viable at a real, substantial level. Where were you 20 years ago when you were 20 years old? Well, that was 2004. Obama wasn't even elected yet. So think about what your finances were then. Let's go back 40 years when Dr. Claude Anderson really started stomping about these things. Most of y'all weren't even born. Forget being politically viable. You weren't even born. So with that being the case, that puts it more in context. Well, who was out there? Your mom, your dad, your grandparents. That's who were out there. That's what you had there before. And what were they doing? They wasn't stomping. They weren't organizing. You had Jesse Jackson and Push or whatever, but that wasn't a PAC. That wasn't a political action committee. That was one of these charities or whatever. So that hasn't been what our aim has been. You've had the NAACP, but once again, that's not really black run and led either. So when you think about the folks who had the peak earning ability for the last 40 years, it wasn't you and me. It wasn't us. So we didn't have the money and we didn't have the organization either. So do you see where the issue's been? We are just now getting to that point just now. Just now. In just the last, I would tell y'all definitely since Trayvon Martin, that's really when it kind of took off after 2012. We're just getting there. We're just starting. So when you're asking questions about comparing, us to something like APAC or whatever, please understand when you're dealing with things like Jewish society, for example, remember you have folks who they've been moving money now for centuries. They were involved in slavery. They didn't have any of the headwinds we did, any of the handicaps. Turn of the 20th century, you've got motion pictures. These are folks here who got involved in that in its early days. So think about how rich you would be if you had gotten involved in Amazon when it first started. Okay, well, think about these folks and their families got involved in the movie industry when it first started. Radio and television when it first started. They got a century head start on you with the biggest enterprises. Hell yeah, they got tons of money to throw into that. It's had a century of maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So hell yeah, they got a lot more than you. They've been at it for a century way before you came along. Now, you get to World War II. The world lets them know, by the way, we really will wipe you out. That lit a fire under them. So everything since then has been about economics and getting into the judicial system. So that's why you have so many Jewish businesses and Jewish lawyers. That was the lesson of World War II for them. We better make sure our bread stays straight, and we better make sure that we are represented in these judicial systems so that there's somebody to rule in our favor no matter what. Because we can't trust these Anglos.
But there's the thing, though. With them, they're allowed to. It seems like they're allowed to rule in their favor. When we get people appointed, it's always a black face in a high place. You know what I mean? Like, we don't trust Ketanji Brown Jackson to look out for us, right? It's almost like I think about like what you're talking about with the economic head start. Think about the Chinese, right? The Chinese were centuries behind America, but what they did was they found a way to start opening up, getting these businesses in America to share with them the knowledge of, well, how do you make an iPhone? Yeah, if you want us to make the iPhone, you got to give us the schematics and all this kind of stuff. And they got those schematics. What I'm saying is, how the hell do we get the schematics?
Well,
on how
let
to
me
start
let
a
me
super
deal with
PAC?
what you just said there first of all. Let me find out what city are you in.
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Okay, you're in Pittsburgh. There, I can't really speak to Pittsburgh. I've only been there like once. But up the street in New York, you're a couple hours outside New York. Up the street there, for example, and I've talked about this a bunch of times. You have whole Hasidic neighborhoods up there. That was not given. That's not the way they operating. I've been there. I've been up and down Ocean. I've been over there in Brooklyn. I've been there. I'm seeing whole neighborhoods with high-rise tenements. Nothing but fundamentalist Jews there. Nothing but a bunch of women pushing baby strollers down the streets. And there's been news story after news story after news story about how they're abusing the welfare system over there in those areas. What? Yeah, by the way, there's been story after story after story in New York City about how those Hasidic Jewish communities are abusing the welfare system. The women ain't working. They getting welfare, food stamps, Section 8. The folks who own those tenement buildings that they're all in, yeah, they're Jewish landlords, but all the tenants are Jewish. So, yeah, your tax dollars at work. What I'm saying is they're organized. Now, move on down the street in Harlem. We don't own that. You got black folk who own the brownstones and whatnot, but when it comes to the buildings and things like that, well, you got Jewish landlords for that too. And what I'm saying is that that's what they've invested in. No wonder they have the money to fuel those political PACs like you're talking about. No wonder they have the resources to be able to do that. I went through that big, long explanation to explain to you here. Yes, we are pushing about reparations, what we're owed. We will continue to do so. We are not going to let up on the gas. We're going to continue to do that. But please understand what the real makeup and composition of it is. These folks have never had an issue of passing the hat. They got their economic viability under them. Their credit scores are good. They got savings. They're not going off and going buying tennis shoes and big screen TVs. They focus first and foremost on things that have a return on investment. Let me get this business. Let me get this real estate. Things like that. That's the attitude that needs to be engendered among us. They mentioned Michael Moritz. So what I'm saying is that it's not something that takes millions and millions of us to do. You're 40 years old. I use this as an example all the time. The federal government is too big of an elephant for you to try to eat. So don't waste a whole lot of brain power on how you're going to skin that elephant. That's not really viable. But you are in Pittsburgh. I give you all this exercise to use every election cycle. Have you looked up the campaign finance records for your city council? Of course you haven't.
Well, I'm a former councilman. I'm not in Pittsburgh itself. I'm right outside of Pittsburgh in a little borough. I was on the borough council there. I understand how that stuff works.
Definitely. My thing about it is I understand when people talk about political action committees, for example, as you know, then if you've been in politics, then you know you have at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. It's very easy. I understand because we've had a lot of our biggest progress at the federal level, and I get that. The problem is that would take a massive amount. Now you're talking hundreds of millions, and that's easier to do when you're a Steve Wynn or a Michael Moritz or a Jeff Bezos who can give $100 million to Van Jones. So these are the mathematical realities. To buy with those guys, that's the reason why you have to show up with $100 million, because you're going to need billions if you're going to operate at that level just to be significant. If you're talking about lobbyists, that's going to cost you at least hundreds of thousands of dollars and probably millions, but at least hundreds of thousands, because you're going to usually has to be a former congressman or somebody like that. That's not going to be a small thing. So with that being, and furthermore, you'd have to be able to be consistent with it. It's not something you can just do and disappear with. I'm less concerned about having lobbyists and PACs. I'm less concerned about that than I am about a code of conduct. because there's the element, folks kind of nibble around the edges and don't want to have to grapple with that part, because the bottom line is you may see what the issue is and you're on top of that. But does the average black person in Pittsburgh understand it the way you do? Or is there some wavering going on? That is enough to dilute what you're doing. The biggest thing, in my opinion, and I've been on the ground about this ever since, the biggest thing is I hope you all understand that the only reason why it doesn't go further is because we have competing arguments. We're going to have to settle that issue and settle those arguments. You're not going to get anything else done until then. Donald Trump was in the White House because he beat everybody else down with his arguments. He mocked him, he lampooned him, he this, that, and the other. But please understand, he trampled them intellectually. He trampled them in the public square. He trampled them with arguments first. The money came second. Remember, he was behind in all the polls. He was behind in the debates and everything till he got there and whatnot, and then things turned around for him. That's the part that we're missing. I could give you $1 billion, but if you have not succeeded in convincing 25% of the people where you are of it, it's not going to do you any good. There's the issue. When we talk about a cultural issue, that's the cultural issue we're referring to. Are black folk where you are on code? Because that makes up for a lot. Please remember, we got things done in 2020 after George Floyd and didn't have to run one political campaign. Not one. Think about that for a few moments. I should know I was there. I bought the billboards in Atlanta. Keisha Bottoms, reparations or resign. By the way, what did she wind up doing? Resigning. Okay. Governor Cuomo, reparations or resign. Yikes. Lori Lightfoot, reparations or resign. I'll be damned. She got trounced at the election. That's 3 for 3. I'm not telling you that it was all me. It certainly wasn't. What I am saying, though, is that that's the power of being on code. And I didn't wait until 2022 or 2024 to do it. I did it right then when all that was happening. Right in the middle of the jungle, I was doing it. Right then, right there. And that showed, I got phone calls from the TV stations and local radio stations there and whatnot, because nobody thought you would do something like that during an election year or during an election cycle. They didn't think you'd do something like that. And there I was. That was something they weren't expecting, that you would do this so openly. And what they're saying is if there's somebody out there doing that, and this is from black society, you don't have any support. Those are the conversations that were going on behind the scenes, and all I can say is take a look at the results. You don't have their support. Now, that was just one place where I did that. Those are just a few places I did that. If you want to start a PAC, let me just go ahead and start with that for you. If you want to start a political action committee, you're going to have to do it one of two ways. You're going to use money like anything else. You are either going to have to get 1 or 2 individuals who have a lot of money, or you're going to have to get a bunch of individuals who put in a little money. There you go. Now, you can go to your church, you can go to your civic organization, you can do whatever, but that's the way that getting a PAC together works. This is why white folk, obviously, they go find some millionaire or something like that usually gets it started, and then they go from there. A PAC is not a bunch of little poor Jewish ladies throwing a few dollars. That's not what a PAC is. That is not what it is. If we went down the list of folk who are really involved there, these are some of the richest, most powerful individuals in media and corporate in America. These ain't small fries. Yeah. So if you're going to go to war against them, I'm just saying, hey, if you're going to make an apples to apples comparison, I'm just saying, can we please be realistic about what the apples are? I'm not against you doing that comparison. I'm not against you going at them, but can we just be realistic about what your apple needs to be? And it has to go from there. So if you don't have that, you're going to have to get together a bunch of people who will. Here's where we tend to fail. And by the way, I'm going to put myself in that category too. Here's where we tend to fail. I am antisocial as a son of a gun. I am not a people person by any stretch of the imagination. I can say that and we can giggle about it, but that's not good. Not if you're going to run in politics, not if you're going to start a PAC. That's actually a negative. That's a huge negative. It's not funny. Somebody is going to have to be the personable person. I've always had, hats off to Tariq. Tariq is far more personable than I will ever be. It's not even close. And we need that. Like it or not, we need that. In the chat room, somebody said people suck. I mean, no argument from me, but you got to get those people to go along with you because that's politics. You can't do it by yourself. You can't override everybody else's vote on your own. It don't work that way. Even if you're right. Even if you're right and the rest of the population is wrong, you still don't get to override them. So somebody needs to be the personable person. Somebody needs to be the social butterfly. Somebody needs to be that.
We need a lot more like that guy down in South Carolina that was challenging
Marcel Dixon.
Marcel Dixon. Yeah. We need like at least 5 or to 10 more of those kind of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be totally honest, my thing in that regard there is I would really like to see more of us going for more local things in that regard, because I've been to Charleston. There's a lot popping in Charleston. There really, really is. So folks, if y'all have not been down there and whatnot, to that monster they're building down there on the waterfront, Lowe's, that's just one among several. There's a lot going on down there. I really want us to be strategic in how we leverage our resources on things. And I really think that's important because, you've got the establishment against you 100% completely. And it is essential to them to stomp you out in the crib, because they understand if they lose even one, it's over. Or at least that's a major, major problem if they lose even one. So I would like to see us get better organized in that regard. And I really want to see us, quite frankly, if we are going to make a move like that and have people like Marcel, I want us to choose our targets strategically. I want us to choose targets where we have outsized advantages. So even if that results in a smaller seat or something like that, that's okay. That is okay, because we can always build from there. We can always build from there. I would like to see us choose some more strategic targets. It's very nice to have a RFK, and I'm not that I support him necessarily, but it's very nice to talk about that at the national level. I would like to see us, we would have a hell of a whole lot done with another Eric Mays, for example. We'd have a whole lot done with that. I don't want us to discount that. We really, really would have a lot done with that. We're going to get more done at the city level than at the federal level anyway. There's where the big issues tend to happen. Because when you talk about police gunning us down and whatnot, that's not the feds doing it, that's the city level. I think that if you're going to talk about putting together packs and things like that, I think it's going to be in places where you can organize that kind of thing. So Atlanta, Philadelphia, but you're going to need somebody who is A, personable, and B, connected. So I'm answering your question. If you can't do that, or you won't do that, and Jason won't do that, but if you can't do that or won't do that, then it basically becomes very difficult. I focus on the lane in which I can, which is media and communication. That's my thing. And if I can help somebody from here to there, I do that. If you are serious, like I say, you're going to have to get the funding. Now, here's the other thing about it. And I'm not advocating this, but by the way, some folks take out a loan, for example. What? I'm not advocating that, by the way. But I should let you know, by the way, political campaigns do that. So you do have avenues open to you. But if you want to know what that would really require, that's what it would be. But you don't start a PAC and then raise money and guess how you're going to do it. You're supposed to first figure out exactly what is this PAC going to do, how much would it cost to accomplish it, and then you start getting your money together. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't done that, you got the cart sitting on top of the horse. So if you're going to have a PAC, you need to specifically know, what is this PAC going to do? Are we trying to elect one person, 5 people? Okay, that's your goal. How much does it cost to elect one person, 5 people? There's your campaign finance records to give you a good idea on that. Okay, well, now we know what this PAC needs. Lastly, how are we going to get it together? When you solve those 3 things, well, now you can go. In 3 easy steps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for giving us a call.
my plane.
Appreciate you giving us a call here. Now, like I say, I mean, definitely, I don't have a problem with those things there. It's just, if you're going to get into the waters, remember, this is already full of sharks already. You can't debate your way out of those. You got to deal with the realities of where you're at. Got to deal with the realities of where you're at. We have to deal with the realities of where we're at. Those kind of things are going to be important. And I don't have a problem with PACs, by the way. I don't have a problem with PACs. I think that's fine. Just make sure if you're going to do like everybody else, you're going to have to do that a certain way. You're going to have to do that a certain way. These other folks here would like for you to believe that you are not going to be able to challenge their authority on these things. And that's important. That's important. I don't know. What do you all think about that? I thought that'd be interesting. What do you all think about that? How much do you think that a black PAC would really need? Go ahead and post that in the comments section for me. I want to find out, what do you think that would need? Okay, in the chat room here, Diggleman1, I need you to go ahead and give me a call up here. So Diggleman1 needs to click the Zoom link. Diggleman1 needs to click the Zoom link for me here. So I'm going to give you a few moments to do that here, but Diggleman1 needs to click the Zoom link for us here. We need to have a little bit of a sidebar, so I'm going to give him a couple of minutes to go ahead and do that. In the chat room, folks are saying that 1 million, 40 million, 75 million, 50 million. I think somebody's trying to say 10 billion to start, but okay, Jasmine says 50,000 to start locally. We built this as 150 to 500,000. So there's some folks there who think that that's those numbers there. And by the way, that is not unreasonable. That is not unreasonable. What you really do, the best place to start, I think, is when you go ahead and take a look at your local campaigns and see how much folks spent to win their seats. And then that gives you a good idea of basically what it costs to run for office for that seat in your area. It gives you a ballpark figure that's reliable. It gives you a reliable ballpark figure. And I think that's a good place to start. So that way you're dealing with realistic things. That way you're dealing with realistic things. However, remember, if we're dealing with other people, when you're dealing with other people, that can happen. When you're dealing with other people, that can happen. When you deal with other people and other people's money, that can occur. That can occur. By the way, I am waiting on Mr. Diggleman on Zoom. We are waiting for him here. Okay, no, he is not on Zoom now. So to my mods, if he's told you that he's on Zoom, he is not being honest. So I will give him 2 more minutes and then permanent vacation. But he is not on Zoom right now. No, he's not. Now, everybody else didn't have a problem being able to get on there. I asked him to give us a call, and all of a sudden, oh, no, I'm on it. Actually, no, he's not. So he's got 2 more minutes here. These other folks here, I want you all to understand that, yeah, I mean, when you talk about APAC and whatnot, yeah, you're talking about international finance and international law and whatnot. It took them a century to get to that point, but they had to be focused on it. You had to be focused on that when you started. You don't just get up one day and then, let's go ahead and do something at random. That's not what they do. The other thing is, I want you to understand how hyper organized they are at the local level. Have you all seen how they're organized in the New York area? I mean, they are a super sophisticated, well-oiled machine. I mean, if you see them at the local level in New York, man, that thing is a marvel to take a look at them locally in New York. You take a look at them in New York, you take a look at them in New Jersey, you take a look at them in California. I mean, they are smooth as silk. Completely frictionless. Completely frictionless. I'm just talking about that's at the local level. Yeah, look at how they got Jamal Bowman out. Oh, they made short work of him. They made short work of him. They didn't give a damn who voted for him before. It's like, oh, nigga, you leaving today. You gone today. Trust and believe. So what I'm just saying is take a look at that, man. Just at the local level. That type of sophisticated organization and just being smooth like that, that's important. That's important. Mr. Dingleman has 60 more seconds, and then he's going on a permanent vacation. So by the way, no, he has not shown up on Zoom yet. He's got 60 more seconds or he's going on a permanent vacation. And by the way, this is a teaching moment. So glad that he's given us this opportunity because this is a teaching moment. This is a teaching moment. Now, think about that for just a few moments there. If they spent $15 million to get Jamal Bowman out of there, think about that for a few moments. Is that district worth $15 million? Is that district even worth $15 million? Folks, these people are spending more money in these geographic areas than these areas even have in economic activity. That's what that is. Mr. Dingleman showed up on Zoom for half a second. I clicked to let him in, and then he disappears. Not sure what he's doing there, but okay. Sir, you can unmute yourself. Okay, I'm thinking he's trolling here, so let me go ahead and do that. Yes, sir, we've been here the whole time. We're waiting on you to stop playing.
Okay. You said you asked me to call up, right?
Yes, sir. Just to make sure we don't have a trolling issue here, just need you to turn your camera on for me. You will not be on the screen for anybody else to see, just me.
Good.
All right, Mr. Dingleman. And by all means, please, you are here to educate us about a few things.
Right. Yeah, so definitely not trolling. It's just I was involved with in the past, and based on finance laws, you can't really take out people do it, but you're not allowed to take out a loan specifically to finance a campaign. But that's all I was saying. I wasn't trying to troll or anything.
Okay, sir, you've been involved in political campaigns where, sir?
In Florida. Florida.
Okay. Where are your people from originally, sir?
Florida, originally.
Okay,
well, South
sir.
Carolina.
Okay, let's try this a different way. Where was your great grandmother born?
Beaufort, South Carolina. Full blood Gullah Geechee. Mom and dad.
That doesn't sound quite right, sir. And just, if you, no offense, sir, but you don't remind me. We got the barber needs to make a pit stop by the house at some point. If you'd like me to hook you up with that, the barber needs to make a pit stop by the house at some point. So I can see about assisting with that, but there's a reason why I say that, sir, because understand something. One of the worst things we have here is disinformation and misinformation. And that tends to be a real problem. And that's why I have to jump on that real quick, because that's an important thing. Now, maybe you have something that the rest of us don't have here. So I'm very glad you gave us a call here tonight so we can go ahead and clear this up really, really quickly. On your screens right now, this is from the FEC website. So maybe you'd like to have an opportunity to clear this up for us real quick. But by the way, folks, on your screen right now, well, that's from the FEC website. Well, it says here, bank loans. A candidate or his or her campaign committee may obtain a loan, including a line of credit from a bank, provided that the loan bears the bank's usual and customary interest rate for the category of loan involved, is evidenced by a written instrument, is subject to a due date or amortization schedule, and is made on basis which assures repayment. So, sir, I'm curious who told you this, because you mentioned you worked on a campaign. I'm curious whose campaign you worked on.
So the PAC I worked on was Forward Pinellas PAC in Pinellas County, Florida.
Okay, but you said it's a campaign, so I'm curious whose campaign thought you couldn't take out a loan.
Well, that was a rule for that particular PAC, but there was a politician in the area that ended up getting in trouble for doing that. He didn't get impeached, but he did end up. It was a scandal where he ended up losing his seat during the election. But to my understanding, based on my experience, that was a problem.
Okay. Not really sure where you got a hold of that bad information, but there's a reason why I stopped the program here tonight, because I want everyone to understand something. As you all know, I take that very seriously when I give information and say things. If somebody jumps up and refutes it, it's like, okay, we have to take that seriously, because if people read your comment and thought that what you were saying was accurate, why they would think that what I told the gentleman who just got off the phone or just got off Zoom with me, that I was giving him wrong information.
Right, and I wasn't trying to say it in the way of like being accusatory towards you. That was just my experience. But,
right, but it's not, I understand that. But what I am saying though is that what I'm telling you though is that that can't be accurate. I'm not sure where you picked up that information, but I know where it didn't come from. It did not come from the Federal Election Commission. I'm showing you right here on the website. Anybody can Google this. Hey, this is what the Federal Election Commission says, specifically with the area that says bank loans. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than what that is. I mean, they're literally saying, yeah, you can take out a bank loan. You sure can. Now, it needs to abide by these rules. Otherwise, we will consider that to be a contribution from the bank. So we need to make sure you dot all the I's that this is actually qualifying as a loan. If it doesn't meet all these qualifications, then we're going to consider that to be a contribution from the bank, not a loan. Now, in which case the bank can still give you the money. Only now it will be treated as a contribution and not a loan. Which, of course, obviously there would be different regulations and requirements, different scrutiny that comes if you have a bank that's making a contribution to a political candidate. Okay, well, that changes things. But if they're taking out a loan, well, that's different. But the real thing is to make sure we're not just taking out a loan on paper, or that it's not a fake loan, or y'all are doing some sort of chicanery, that it actually qualifies as a loan and is being held to those standards, and this is what we're looking for. So just in case somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, well, we got you dead to rights that you're acting illegally. But no, sir, you can take out a loan for your political campaign. You sure can. Just like for a car, just like for a car, just like for a house, just like for any enterprise. You can do it for your political campaign too. I don't recommend it. As I told the gentleman previously, I don't recommend it. But, by the way, if worse come to worse, if you want to put the house up, that's an option.
Right. And it might have been a situation where he did do something funny. I just know he ended up getting in trouble for it. So I didn't want something to trip, like, some little thing to trip us up or something like that we just, didn't consider.
Right. Well, like I say, that's the whole reason why I wanted to make sure about that. A candidate or his or her campaign committee. So just thought we'd go ahead and take a moment there to put that in there. So as long as they can track the money and assure that it's actually a loan and it's not just a bank taking out depositors' money and throwing it to somebody, they just want to make sure that they can track to make sure this is a legitimate loan and not a contribution. If you want to make a contribution, you can do that too, but it needs to be classified as contribution. Don't tell us it's a loan so you can get around limits or something and it's not actually a loan. That's all.
Right. So definitely apologies. I was incorrect.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. It is important where you get your news. It's important where you get your education. It's important where you get your information from. So definitely I want to make sure we're clear about that, because I want to make sure you all know you're not dealing with somebody on the internet who's just guessing this as I go along and making this up as I go along because, ooh, that sounded nice. That sounded kind of slick. Ooh, Jason sounds kind of innovative. No, this is really what you can do. I don't recommend it. Did I say I don't recommend it? Did I mention I don't recommend it? I don't recommend it. But yeah, I mean, if worse comes to worse, if you're willing to take the risk, yeah, you can do that too. You can do that too. So now you got an idea about that. Accuracy matters there. We're going to go ahead. I think that's a good note to end things on here. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, every holiday, and some days in between. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, go check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, blackchannelfilms.com. I think the crowdfunding for 8 a.m. is still going here. And just a reminder to you all, the situation with microphone check is a reminder to all of us. The new black media is under assault, and you're seeing it ramp up as we have gotten more significant. Yeah, folks are switching to different means. If they can't talk us into oblivion, they'll start taking, now you're seeing them kicking up the legal action. So please understand, as we are making progress, as we're kicking in doors, as we are making new things occur, just understand the opposition is stepping up too. And we're only going to see this increase. It's only going to increase as we get more influential and as we get more results. Look for these things to increase. So it is more important than ever that support for our work happens here. We're showing you what occurs. It's more important than ever. They don't even want us to have these conversations. And the only reason this is happening is because people are actually listening. People are actually listening. If nobody was 15 years ago when they thought nobody was listening, that was why they ignored us. And they left us alone for 15 years. They woke up 15 years later and found out just how many people are listening. Now they're panicking. So now they're switching to, okay, whether it's bogus or not, say something to try to get it shut down. This is where we're at today. So this is why we're doing what we're doing. The link is in the description of the video. I think it's still going, so definitely make sure you're a part of that as well. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program. Nequetra and everyone else here, thank you very much for your support. I want to thank all of you, FBA Queen, for gifting out memberships here. So thank you very much for your support, sister, as well. We appreciate that. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you for watching live or recorded. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.